Who remembers the good old days of Call of Duty, when the developers were not afraid to pit players against one another based on connection and not skill, when the idea of paying for cameras was nothing more than a joke, and a time when the developers actually cared for the community they made for themselves? Over 10 years later, the series is a shadow of its former self, pandering to a player base that doesn't care for the games that made this series what it is today. I think the problem with modern Call of Duty is its unwavering dedication to not addressing the problems the old fans have with the new games, brushing off all their criticism as needless hate. I do think that there are some bad actors just hating the games to hate, but that doesn't mean that all the hate is unwarranted. Call of Duty is so big that pleasing its fanbase is impossible. There always will be unhappy players no matter how good the game is, but changing a few things could make that massive amount of hate become much smaller. Skill-based matchmaking is the main talking point for the community, and while I don't entirely hate its concept, it definitely needs toning down a bit. Not every match should feel like I'm playing for my life. Warzone's rise to popularity has affected the Call of Duty franchise massively, changing some of its core mechanics to pander to the Warzone audience. Activision has gone down the path of choosing the new Warzone audience because why wouldn't they? Call of Duty, with all its problems, will still be the best-selling game of that year, and no matter the discontent the core fanbase feels, they still buy it. Every year the same thing happens. The game gets announced and everyone gives their thoughts. The game then gets closer to launch and the beta comes out, leading to people airing their grievances with the game, and then finally the game comes out and the people who didn't like the beta still buy the game, giving Activision no reason to change its ways. Call of Duty has always been known for its casual player base, so it doesn't surprise me that they would put all their resources into making them happy. I just don't think that they're going about it in the right ways. Call of Duty has steadily been losing its player base over the last year off of bad game after bad game, and more recently their losses are off the back of Warzone's consistent failings. I feel Activision's ways of trying to bolster its casual player base has done the opposite, leading into too many changes that would appeal to the casuals, yet didn't. Too many games fall into this pitfall. Barely any game has built a massive fanbase off of creating something exclusively for casuals. Casuals just want a fun game to play that has very engaging mechanics, and not some watered down game that appeals to the lowest denominator. The development teams of Call of Duty cycle every year, and you can definitely tell which is which. Treyarch are known for their cartoony and colourful games, which more often than not are the best received by the community. Sledgehammer are the middleman, the studio that comes in to fill the void with a game when one of the studios are falling behind on their development. And Infinity Ward, the studio who has drove Call of Duty down the road it now sits. Infinity Ward, ever since regaining developers from Respawn, have been the developer who makes the best feeling games, yet make the worst decisions possible regarding the fun of their games. Their commitment to making maps that accommodate to the absolute lowest possible denominator is one of the reasons that the community has such a bad opinion of them. Infinity Ward made Warzone, and with the gigantic success that it was, it doesn't surprise me that Activision gave them the special treatment, but that does not change the fact that they have made some of the worst decisions for the franchise as a whole. Activision's obsession with microtransactions has ruined some of its best games with how badly they were handled. Black Ops 3 and 4 are some of the best games to come from the franchise in years, but with how bad they were monetized, they were held back. This was the time when Activision was hell-bent on slapping loot boxes into every game a month after launch, restricting new content to a randomized game system. And how did you get these loot boxes, you may ask? Well, if you didn't buy them, you would have to grind for hours and hours for a chance at only a few boxes, pretty much pushing players to pay for them instead of grinding. Oh, and I forgot to mention, some of those boxes included weapons that were absolutely overpowered, making them feel very pay to win. It saddens me that Activision's greed led the community to thinking that these games were bad, because if you put the modern form of monetization into those games, they would be touted as some of the best games in the franchise, even with how bad the modern version of monetization is. Call of Duty Mobile might be the perfect COD game outside of all of its microtransactions, and that's because it has everything, from maps and modes to weapons and progression systems found in past games. Truly, it hurts my heart they put all this time and effort into something that is only playable on phones. Like if they put 1/10 of the passion of that game into the newer games, then all would be good, and we wouldn't ever have to have these conversations again. But because Activision hasn't been given a reason to make something that resembles COD Mobile on consoles and PCs, they never will. At this point, if Activision is unwilling to make a COD game that the old fans want, then they should just get someone to remake an old one. Because it's worked before. Look at Modern Warfare Remastered. It carried Call of Duty at its worst point, when the fanbase were done with jetpack games and wanted something that resembled the old games. And then Modern Warfare Remastered launched beside Infinite Warfare and was the game that the old fans gravitated towards. And on the topic of remade old games, the biggest missed opportunity might be the multiplayer mode for Modern Warfare 2 Remastered not coming to be. We know that Raven finished development on the multiplayer mode from Raven developers themselves, so is it just sat in a server? Like, how did that even happen? Could you imagine a world where they remastered Black Ops 2 or Modern Warfare 3's multiplayer mode for the old fans? It would pretty much fix Activision's problems of wanting the Warzone fans to like a game while also keeping the old fans happy. The COD community has and always will be a bunch of hypocrites, buying and supporting Activision while saying the opposite. If you want Activision to change, then you have to hurt their bottom line. If the games don't appeal to you, then don't buy them. I've seen far too many people yell from the rooftops that the new games are bad and that they'll never buy another one while then buying the game. What you are doing is not helping your cause, it's hurting it. One lost purchase might not hurt Activision now, but over time, with more lost sales, it will hurt more and more, to the point where Activision would have to do something. As a community, just try to stand for something, instead of looking like a group of buffoons that don't practice what they preach. Warzone's current downfall is history repeating itself. If you know anything about COD, then you know the old Infinity Ward pretty much created COD as we know it with COD 4. And just like COD 4, Infinity Ward made Warzone. Not the first attempt at a Call of Duty Battle Royale, but the one that became the most popular. And whatever Infinity Ward creates, they also destroy. Because modern Infinity Ward has no idea of what to do with things they create nowadays. Old Infinity Ward innovated and gave us kill streaks. And what did modern Infinity Ward give us? An extra run with tactical sprint. The modern innovations of COD nowadays are just needless mechanics added in the name of change. Nothing COD has added over the last few years has been needed for this series to evolve to something better than it was. If anything, it's made it worse. And with the Microsoft deal finally coming to a close, I want to hope that they can actually change the series for the better. I've been very critical of Microsoft and their dealings, but that doesn't change the fact that I want Call of Duty to be the best it can be, and for it to stop chasing needless cash every year to please investors. Microsoft has the chance to reunite the fanbase and give them the one thing they've wanted for the last few years, and that's a good game. With the rumours of it going to a 2-year cycle hopefully being true, we can only pray that Treyarch is cooking up something special that brings us back to the glory days of the series, because for now, we're going to have to live with Activision's leftover bad decisions with Modern Warfare 3. I've wanted Call of Duty to return to its former glory for quite some time now. As someone who grew up with this series at its peak and remembers the time and memories it's given to me, I can say for a fact that the current games do not in any way capture the magic of what once was. Maybe it's the nostalgia talking, and COD was never good. Maybe the modern games reflect me growing older and understanding that I never liked COD in the first place. But having played the older games again not too long ago, the idea of that all just being nostalgia fades away. The older games had this air of fun around them, where the devs didn't care to pander to any one of its fan bases, they just wanted to make a fun game played by many. The Call of Duty franchise is bigger than it's ever been off the back of Warzone, so it doesn't surprise me that they have changed the entire franchise around it. It just saddens me as an old fan to realise the games I grew up with and love dearly will probably never be made again. For the old fans, the only hope we have of seeing the games we once loved return is in the form of a remaster of an old game, because Activision has no reason or thought to go back to what once was.